pros and cons of standardized testing.
We're going to debate them today. This should be a good one. Welcome to the Cool Teacher Show. Glad you could join us. Since you're here, click the like button. When you do, you could win some cool teacher stuff. Today's winner is Greg Felton, who commented on the Get Your Life Back in Balance Teachers Show. He said, I've found that working on balance helps the intonation. Really funny, Greg.
Yeah.
Greg's a band director, by the way.
Now I get it.
Yeah, intonation, balance. Okay, all right.
Okay.
So you could be the winner next time. So we got some of the ideas today for this show from a really cool website and studies that corroborate all of our statements. So we've been actually working on this show for quite a while. We wanted to actually have a debate about, do standardized tests really have the effect that they do? And so there's a lot of data out there, and it may not, well, we'll see. We'll see which side you come out on. Now, for the purposes today, I'm stuck, lost the coin toss, taking the pro standardized testing approach, which is not something that I personally believe, but I'm going to do my best to try to sell this. Barbara is the con, why we wouldn't want standardized testing.
Of course.
So I'm going to start.
Okay.
Okay, so 93% of studies on student testing include using large-scale and high-stakes standardized tests. They all found, 93%, a positive effect on students' achievement. I'm going to say that again. A positive effect,
I heard
Barbara.
you the first time.
Right? 93% say that standardized tests have a positive effect. So according to a peer-reviewed 100-year analysis of testing research completed in 2011. This is by our colleague and scholar Richard P. Phelps.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
93%.
I have to say that's a pretty good pro, but my con is that standardized testing has not improved student achievement. After the No Child Left Behind, can I say that?
No, that we got to bleep that.
Okay.
I'm afraid.
After that passed in 2002, the U.S. slipped from 18th in the world in math on the Program for International Student Assessment, also known as PISA, or pizza to you, to 31st place in 2009, with a similar drop in science and no change in reading. A May 2011 National Research Council report found no evidence test-based incentive programs are working. And this is a quote they wrote. Despite using them for several decades, policymakers and educators do not yet know how to use test-based incentives to consistently generate positive effects on achievement and to improve education.
So they're saying, with that quote, they don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about reliability. Standardized tests are reliable, and they're objective measures of student achievement. So without them, policymakers would have to rely on test scores by individual schools and teachers who have a vested interest in producing favorable results. How are your kids doing? My kids are the best.
Yeah.
Look at the back of my car. Look at all the stickers we have.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's terrible. They have a vested interest in producing favorable results.
Yeah.
So multiple choice tests in particular are graded by machines and therefore not subject to human subjectivity or bias.
Right. And I see where you're coming from there. I mean, I
Reliability,
really do.
Yes.
I really do. I mean, teachers, schools, they don't have the psychometric tools enable them to write a reliable, valid test. No, psychometric.
Oh, okay.
But here's my con on that. Standardized tests are an unreliable measure, I would argue, of student performance.
How's that?
Well, because in 2001, a study published by the Brookings Institution found that 50 to 80% of year-over-year test score improvements were temporary and caused by fluctuations that had nothing to do with long-term changes in learning. So there's an argument there that really standardized tests are not that reliable in measuring achievement.
That it's temporary.
Yes.
That's the Brookings Institute is arguing that
It's
those tests are
temporary,
50 to 80%?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can come back from that.
Okay.
So standardized tests are inclusive, right? They're non-discriminatory because they ensure content is equivalent for all students, right? So this kind of answers that issue before of folks, fudging their own numbers, right? they're the same across. So former Washington, D.C. school chancellor Michelle Rhee argues that using alternate testing for minorities or exempting children with disabilities would be unfair. She says that you can't separate them, and to try creates two unequal systems, with one with accountability and one without. She says this is a civil rights issue.
Well, I can see where she's coming from, and as you know, there are pros and cons, but my con is that really standardized tests are unfair and discriminatory, especially against non-English speaking students and students with special needs. English language learners take tests in English before they've really mastered the language. And special education students take the same tests as other students anyhow. And so they receive few of the accommodations usually provided to them as part of their individualized education plans. So I would argue that really those students of color and disability are unfairly tested.
Well, let's leave that one alone for a bit, and let's talk about the process, right?
Okay.
We always hear about teaching to the test,
Yeah.
teaching to the test. We're always forced to teach to the test. Well, you know what? Teaching to the test can be a good thing because it focuses on essential content and skills. It eliminates time-wasting activities that don't produce learning gains, right? And it motivates students to excel, theoretically. So the U.S. Department of Education stated in 2004 that, and I quote, if teachers cover subject matter required by the standards and teach it well, then students will master the material on which they are tested, right? And probably much more.
Well, and that's called backwards curriculum design, where you design the curriculum backwards. You know what the students need to learn or know or do or whatever, and then you design your instruction. But
Okay.
I would argue that teaching to the test is really replacing good teaching practices with this kill and drill rote kind of learning where they're really just, the kids are monkeys and the teachers are just training them to be monkeys. Okay, a 5-year University of Maryland study completed in 2007 found the pressure teachers were feeling to teach to the test since Nickleby was leading to declines in teaching higher order thinking in the amount of time spent on complex assignments and in the actual amount of high cognitive content in the curriculum, and that is quoted, those are not my words. So in other words, they're really, they're teaching to the teaching to the test is not working for these teachers.
Well, let's focus this back on the students for a second, right? And we get a lot of criticism about testing is so stressful. They can't.
It is
they can't.
stressful.
There's a
It
pencil
is.
and there's writing, and I might die. Look, testing is not too stressful for students. The U.S. Department of Education also stated that although testing may be stressful for some students, testing is a normal and expected way of assessing what students have learned. So in 2001, the University of Arkansas study found that a vast majority of students do not exhibit stress and have a positive attitude toward standardized testing programs. So young students who vomit at their desk do so for a variety of reasons.
Excuse me.
But only in rare cases is this a result of test anxiety.
Oh, I would probably agree with that most students don't experience test anxiety, but some students do. Some students have a severe stress from these standardized tests. I mean, can you imagine? You're going in and you're taking your SAT test, and my goodness, if you don't get the good score, you don't get into college. That's pretty high stakes.
Okay.
Anyhow, according to education researcher Gregory J. Cizek, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly, anecdotes abound. He writes, illustrating how testing produces gripping anxiety in even the brightest students and makes young children vomit or cry, or both. So the Sacramento Bee in 2002 reported that test-related jitters, especially among young students, are so common that the Stanford 9 exam in California comes with instructions on what to do with the test booklet in case a student vomits on it.
So
maybe it opens up into one of those little flight bags, and they can just throw up in the bag.
They're creating test jackets that
students can vomit into.
That are like vomit bags.
Well, we kind of make fun, but it is sad. It's sad. I mean, it's sad that our students are subjected to so much anxiety.
All right, so the multiple choice format, right?
All right.
We're getting a lot of grief about the multiple choice format these days. Well, let me just say something about that.
Yeah.
It's
You
used.
say something about
I
it. You
will.
do it.
Multiple choice format on standardized tests produces accurate information, right? Which is necessary to assess and improve all of the American schools. According to the Center for Teaching excellence at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, multiple choice questions can provide, and I quote, highly reliable test scores. That's a statistical term, by the way, and objective measurement of student achievement. Today's multiple choice tests are so much more sophisticated than their predecessors. The Center for Public Education, which is a national public school advocacy group, says that multiple choice tests now require considerable thought, right? Even notes and calculations before choosing a bubble.
Oh, yeah, those dang bubbles. By the way, I think it's called University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, but maybe they've changed it to, because I'm from Illinois originally. Mm-hmm. Okay, back on the con.
Right, here we are.
Okay, so the multiple choice format used on standardized tests, I would say, is an inadequate assessment tool. It encourages a very simplistic way of thinking in which there are only right or wrong answers. I mean, what about conditional learning? What about all that? It doesn't apply in real world situations. I mean, many times we don't have black or white. It's sort of, well, which is the lesser of two evils? So anyhow, studies show that students can adapt more easily to a game-like point scoring of multiple choice questions.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, so they know if they just play around with it and they say, okay, if it's not this, it's got to be this, or if I don't know which one it is, it's probably C.
But they even teach that in the books.
I know.
Okay. All right. So
it's sad.
Cheating.
All right.
Cheating. We shouldn't test because of cheating. You know what? Cheating by teachers and administrators on standardized tests are rare. It's very rare. And not a reason to stop testing America's children. In March 2011, USA Today investigated the scoring anomalies in 6 states and Washington, D.C., and found that it was inconclusive, right? They found compelling suggestions of impropriety in only one school. So the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Inspector General, by the way, that's a new Law and Order series, Law and Order, USDEOIG,
whatever,
said in 2003 that an investigation found no evidence of widespread cheating on the DC comprehensive exam, right? It's likely that some cheating occurs, of course, right? But some people cheat on their tax returns. Should we, Barbara, then abolish taxation?
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't that be nice? All right. Well, I kind of semi-agree with you on that, but still, using test scores to reward and punish teachers and schools does encourage them to cheat for their own gain. A 2011 USA, here we go again, USA Today, they like to write stories about this, I guess, investigation of 6 states and Washington, D.C. found 1,610 suspicious anomalies in year-over-year test score gains. So there we go. A confidential January 2009 memo prepared for the D.C. school system by an outside analyst, boy, this sounds like a TV show, and uncovered in April 2013 revealed that 191 teachers in 70 D.C. public schools were, quote-unquote, implicated in possible testing infractions, and nearly all teachers at one D.C. elementary school had, quote, students whose test papers showed high numbers of wrong-to-right erasures. So, according to USA Today, also, 178 Atlanta public school teachers and administrators from 44 schools were found to be cheating on standardized tests. At one school, teachers attended weekend pizza parties to correct students' answers, according to ABC News. Boy, they're all into this.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
one.
The pizza party. Ultimately, in April 2015, 11 of those district employees were convicted of racketeering, which carries a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. Sorry, teachers. Can't do that.
Those are the rare exception. Okay, so hopefully some of this has just connected with you where you are. If you are hot and bothered and have something to say about it, put it in the comments below. We're glad that you're. Believe it or not, we're both pretty much on the same side of this. It was really difficult to me
to be the pro.
To be the pro in this case. Because I don't necessarily. Hopefully, my argument was compelling, and those pros out there feel like I represented your side well. But if you want to stick around, we're actually going to talk about what happened in 2015 and what our crystal ball says. And always remember, like, subscribe, and do all of the bell, that stuff.
Dang it, that was
glad
fast.
to have you here. We don't just tackle the game show issues here on the Cool Teacher Show. Sometimes we tackle the real issues. We hope we have your vote.